Hi, I'm Fisher-Wirth, and I'm going to say some poems for you. I'm here in Mississippi, where I've lived for 20 years. The poem I'd like to begin with is from my first book, Blue Window. I'm holding it up so that I hope you can see it. And this is a poem that I wrote when we first lived here. It's called What Is There to Do in Mississippi? It's not about desire, this land that takes us in and gets us lost on back roads, where we come to an impassable bridge at midnight by some bayou. Our headlights useless, we just sit silent, where kudzu looms like velvet to swathe and choke the pines. Crickets chirp, spring peepers clamber to crescendo in the waters. Later we touch, I hold your face in my hands, and my body comes alive like those crickets in the kudzu. But now we sit not touching in the car. The singing night pours down around us. Great, splayed, towering leaves begin to teach us our oblivion. The next poem that I'd like to say for you is also from Blue Window. And this is the title poem from the book. I grew up in Berkeley, California. This is a poem about that moment in your life when everything changes irrevocably in early adolescence. And I should just say that this is really one long sentence that keeps starting over and over again. Blue Window. In that shadowy time before sorrow, that twilight, October in Berkeley, the early 60s, when I walked home along Euclid from Mrs. Runkle's, where I'd played Schumann's Traumerei so beautifully for once, I made her cry. Before the missile crisis, when I sat on the bed in fear and exaltation and thought of Anne Frank, while on the TV downstairs, Soviet ships inched closer to Cuba, and wondered, when they come to get me, when I hide beneath my desk, my head in my hands, and the walls shake, will I have told the world how I love this life I am forced to lose? Before Christian, my neighbor, drank developing fluid, and his death at Alta Bates took 48 hours, the poison dissolving his stomach. And his father, the beautiful philanderer, told my mother the divorce caused it, just failing to add, wringing his elegant crooked fingers, he did it for grief of me. Before Ronnie, my neighbor, took acid and flew out a window, and Jackie, my neighbor, drove 90 miles an hour into a stone wall at prep school in Massachusetts, and Quasi, my neighbor, talked to God and carved his arms and died at Napa. The boys around me lost, all dead by 19. And before I'd ever bled yet, ever got high, or loved a boy, or played at kisses through Kleenex with Mary Lou. In that time before my father lay in bed all 1 year's end, the vast flower of his death blossoming, and wrote in a tiny crabbed hand in the date book I found years later, had to increase the dosage today, Ann and Jink allowance. In that Christian Science household, no one spoke. No one has to this day ever said to me it was brain cancer. The last winter, my husband got drunk in his rare blind fury, ran weeping into the room and pounded the bed over and over, shouting, "Don't you understand yet? In the war, they treated men for lice with lindane, poured it over their heads. They did it to your father. And now they tell us lindane eats your brain." In that time, that twilight, when I walked slowly home along Euclid, how I wanted to belong to the family I saw through the blue wisteria-covered window, to be their girl, enter their garlicky dinnertime kitchen, later to sit on a high attic bed, legs crossed tailor fashion, and pick dreamily at white chenille. I wondered, why not be anyone, go anywhere? When light dies around the oak leaves and white Ragged moths come out to beat against the street light. Why not knock at the door and say, I am yours, I am here. Now for a real change of pace, I'd like to read a poem that will be in the book I've recently finished called Gift. And this is kind of a spoken word performance. Some years ago, I was at a writer's residency in California at the Mesa Refuge. And we were told that there was a boy next door who didn't speak people language. He spoke animal. We never saw him, but we got to know him through his sounds. So it's a poem for him called Sudden Music. Our neighbor is rounding up the cows, chuckling, gurgling. Their noses and ears loom up. They are born snuffling out of hill heft. Mushy, mushy. Poppy and lupin blossoming sideways in his eyes, for he is tipping his head. Calm teeth. Shrip, shrip. Then ugg-lug-lug. Fat tongue and slobber. Phew. Shrip, shrip, ugg-lug-lug. The stiff hair selves lumber into his arms, smelling of warm and pee. No hurry. Now our neighbor is shriek and shrike, shrek, he is kit, and white-tailed kite, meow, at the cream, then a low grating, gah, then happy, the bright wind hanging him, sweet, grr, grr. Then black things, flints and ants, no sound. Our neighbor is down there somewhere, he's fallen off the world. Sleep then. We are wakened again. Swish, swoosh, see! Whistle, pshee! Now he is rainbird in the marshy field, fighting, flinging his seed spit. Then he passes to camels and donkeys. It's 4 a.m. is the whole shebang. Mountain lions and pumas. He's got them and they sing from his neck into his face. His heart spurts blood, claws tense. It's the whole feral rodeo. Yep, that's fine, 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 fine. You could say almost fan when someone's got you by the throat. Hoo-yah! Hoo, hoo, hoo-doo. Hoo-yah! Hoo, hoo, hoo-doo. Oh, he is hawk boy. Oh, he is great horned owl. All of creation, sudden music.